What's up, family? It's the one and only Humble Stun like no other. Thank you guys for tuning in to another video that is a lot different from our last one. If you do like basketball, go check that last video out because we have a special guest that we collabed on the second episode talking about some great basketball. And we have a lot more teams to go, so go check that out. As well as happy Thanksgiving. Obviously, it's not Thanksgiving no more. It's probably a week past. But yeah, definitely want to make sure I wish you guys a happy and safe holidays with Thanksgiving. Hope you guys been with your family and things of that sort. I have. And if you throw out your leftovers 2 days after Thanksgiving, you're not doing Thanksgiving right. So we have to get into this video right now. It's about actually something to talk about pretty much Thanksgiving. You know, it has something to do with Thanksgiving, meat. Everybody gets turkey, everybody gets beef, things of that sort. But we're going to be looking and watching something that's become approved by the FDA, which is lab-grown meat.
This machine is 3D printing steak. The goal is to create a piece of meat without killing a cow.
The goal is to create meat without killing a cow. Obviously, nowadays, you don't know what you're eating. You don't know what you're digesting at all. That question itself is very, very... What is the purpose of it? What is the purpose of creating fake cow?
This Israeli startup is one of the dozens of companies racing to perfect the process.
It turns out that cows aren't necessarily the most efficient way.
How?
Making beef.
It's no secret that beef is one of the most damaging foods for the planet. The search for a solution has become a big business. But can lab-grown steak or plant-based alternatives really fix the broken beef industry?
Like they just cut that off a human.
The global beef industry produced nearly 75 million tons of meat in 2020. That's about 19 pounds for each person on the planet. Each step of the supply chain is doing damage. Let's start on the farm. Raising cattle requires lots of land. On average, tropical rainforests the size of El Salvador are cleared every year to make room for cattle. These cows release tons of methane, one of the most potent greenhouse gases. Then there are the emissions from slaughtering, processing, packaging, and transporting beef.
So I got a question, right? Obviously, all animals on this earth are important to the evolution or to the repetitive cycle of life itself, the life cycle. So if you cut off cows and you start making lab-grown beef or meats and things of that sort, don't you think they will become extinct? That's the only part I don't get. Obviously, it's damaging. They're showing it's damaging.
Globally, beef was responsible for 3 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions in 2010. About twice as much as all vehicles in the US at the time. But plant-based alternatives to meat have grown into a $5.6 billion industry.
Damn.
Beyond Meat has made its way into an estimated 135,000 grocery stores and restaurants. Its signature burger is made by using heating, cooling, and pressure to give plant-based proteins a meat-like texture. A study funded by the company found that, pound for pound, its product generates about 90% less.
I know. I heard of the company Beyond Meat. Obviously, I've been interested in eating like non-fattening things of sorts, but obviously it's the same lab-grown meat. Beyond Meat is not really meat. Like I said, it's a meat texture, but it's not the same thing.
Greenhouse gas emissions than traditional beef. Still, for many scientists, the holy grail is to not just imitate meat, but actually make it. Back in 2013, professor and scientist Mark Post unveiled the first lab-grown burger at a live tasting in London. This one patty cost over $325,000 to make.
It's close to meat.
Hey, yo. What'd she say? One patty? So, you just digested the whole house. You just digested the whole house. in 2013.
$325,000 to make.
It's close to meat. It's not that juicy, but the consistency is perfect.
I think that was kind of one of those like pivotal moments where you're like, oh, this could be a thing.
But it wasn't until 2020 that funding for lab-grown food really started to pour in, with some startups drawing high-profile investments from the likes of Bill Gates and even traditional meat companies.
It's like everyone wants to hop on that bandwagon.
Bill Gates, you like that food, boy?
Now, researchers in Israel are taking on one of the biggest
I think these big investors that invest into the capital into these startups, obviously, they might believe in the company. Obviously, it has an upside. It had an upside. It's still having an upside. But do you really think these people that invest all this money really eat this food?
challenges. Growing steaks in a lab.
That looks like glue.
When it comes to steak, you're bringing together the full range, essentially, of
salmon.
tissue engineering technologies and cell growth technologies.
Simon Fried and his team are using stem cells to create a steak they say is more ethical, although it's not vegetarian. Here's how it works. Look at this perfectly marbled steak. The white stuff is fat, that gives it flavor. The pink stuff is muscle, that's for protein. Scientists had to figure out how to recreate both. First, they take stem cells from a cow and then grow them in a lab.
That means that we're replacing the body of the animal with what's called a bioreactor.
Getting the cells to grow under these conditions is no easy task.
Usually cells are attached to something. They grow in a petri dish or flasks, and they want to attach to something.
Here, the cells grow suspended in a liquid where they divide roughly once a day. Then scientists move the mass of cells to the tissue engineering lab, where they make something called bioinks.
Because this is the beginning of the bioprinting stage, the inks that we're using actually contain the cells that we've been growing in the labs previously.
There's one for muscle and one for fat. They're fed through...
Yeah, you see how little bubbles they making? Like right here.
They're fed through these nozzles, and technicians can customize how much of each goes into the steak.
You can print any structure that you're able to design. So you upload a file to the printer and you can present a steak of pretty much any size and also any proportions.
One key challenge in this process is keeping the printing room sterile.
These are living cells and they're being jetted through the printer. So everything that can be done to keep the air clean of any impurities is necessary.
Otherwise, there's a chance the cells could die. The steaks aren't quite finished when they leave the printing room. The cells still need time to develop into muscle and fat tissue.
What? All these commercials, Business Insider, y'all really getting your money worth. This is crazy. If they doing this now with cows, imagine what they could do with human beings. If they could do this now, replace a whole cow, a whole herd of cows, cattle, imagine what it could do to humans down the line.
From a few days up to a few weeks, we can start seeing the muscle fibers starting to contract spontaneously in the dish.
Which looks like this. The process takes about a month.
And after that, you can treat it as you would a regular piece of meat.
But meat tech is still a long way away from selling its steak to consumers, for a few reasons.
Of course.
Remember how the cells were growing in that liquid? Well, it contains something called fetal bovine serum, or FBS.
In layman's terms, it's baby cow blood.
It's one of the most controversial parts of growing meat in a lab, because it comes from fetuses of pregnant cows that were slaughtered. But it's necessary for the cell.
Wait, so y'all killed a pregnant cow. Y'all take the fetuses and the blood from the dead cow, and then y'all make, like, I feel like you guys are just experimenting and not just really just going with the same process that we always been on. Obviously, you're not gonna have as much space with preserving the cows and things of that sort, but come on now, like, y'all doing the same
to
thing.
grow. Simon told us they are using FBS as part of the research process, but they plan to eventually replace it with something else.
Our plans are that it shouldn't be part of any at-scale commercial activity.
But an alternative that's just as effective has yet to be found. Simon wouldn't give us an estimate on when the steak will be ready for the public to try, or how much it costs to make the prototypes. In the meantime, he says the company is focused on a more attainable goal, like this hybrid product made of soy and beef fat grown in Mitek's lab.
The texture of our culture kebab is nearly the same like a real kebab.
Mitek is building a new facility in Belgium to start making foods like these on a larger scale. But it's unclear how sustainable a scaled-up lab-grown beef industry would really be.
We don't know what the carbon footprint looks like to actually scale these up in the amount of space and energy it will take.
And this is all a gamble on something most consumers haven't even tried yet. So far, meat made in a lab can only be sold in Singapore, where one company debuted its chicken nuggets back in 2020. Despite the uncertainty, companies working on lab-grown meat have raised nearly $2 billion. They're betting that the rest of the world will follow Singapore's lead and start granting lab-grown foods approval for sale. But even if lab-grown meat manages to win over regulators and the public, could it actually replace beef?
No. No. At this moment, that question she just asked me, I feel like it cannot fully replace it. Obviously, it could partially. Obviously, people have their own preferences and what they want to eat, which is fine. But the main point of all of this I'm watching is like what is inside of it and what is the factors or what is the end goal of you digesting it and what's going to happen to you later down the road. Because obviously you're creating cells. This takes a month to actually produce one piece of meat and have it actually be available to eat itself. But like, what is the end goal? What is the purpose? Is this just like a project y'all doing? Like y'all just trying to see something, or this is bigger than what it actually is? And that's the scary part. But obviously it's actually type cool because you've seen little movies. Like, it's basically how fast can you make the food, obviously. Because it's not about the cattle. People been doing that for centuries. It's not that. It's how fast you can make the food. And everything is about quantity over quality. I'd rather have quality over quantity. That's the only part I do not fully feel convinced about with this. Because you're making cells. You're drawing blood from cows. But you're just delaying the process or making the process even longer.
Honestly, not fully convinced that this is the right way to mass produce meat for the public to be eating based off of how long this has been developing and how little we've seen.
So while we wait on lab-grown beef, consumers looking to reduce their carbon footprint can still turn to plant-based options.
That's the end of the video right now. I'm not gonna lie, the burgers right here, I don't know if they're lab-grown or not. It might just be something else to just put on the video, but if it look good, you know what I'm saying? If it tastes good, stuff like that, it's fine. But the thing is, like, what is the after produce? What is it actually doing for you? You know what I'm saying? Because down the line, it might be something bigger than what it actually is in this moment. And pretty much, I don't feel as if this would be a great idea to go focus on. It's less farms nowadays. It's less farmers. It's less land. Obviously, they're showing that, but you have to pretty much, go and make the process better, not restart the process and make it a whole nother non-animal that we're eating. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. This is just a cool video I wanted to dive into. Just see exactly what else is going on in the world. Obviously, there's a bunch of different things we're distracted by, or entertainment, things we love. But this is the small little things that could change in a year or two, because they found out how to really produce it. But to always know that, for me, myself, I always like quality over quantity. So I think this is a quantity issue. Obviously, a lot of food hasn't been the same produced. Obviously, people are eating a lot more, or people are eating a lot less because of what's in the store. and them not being able to produce enough, so they got to make it fake, or they have to put rib meat in your chicken, things of that sort, to actually sell these type of products to get people to buy food that's not really you know, accessible like it used to be back when everybody had farms and brought up the right way. But that's my full opinion, obviously, but we'll see how this goes. And yeah, it's kind of creepy how you got a bunch of just wet cells turn into some meat and you take it out of the cow that's dead. You just, I don't know, but that's my opinion. I'm gonna keep it just like that. Thank you guys for watching this video, and hopefully you guys have some other videos you guys want me to watch. Obviously this is something different than basketball, but I'm gonna be back next time. If you like, comment, and subscribe, because this is a Humble Stunna channel. Stay up, stay humble. Peace out.